Jrue Holiday is on the move. He's off to Boston. Rob Williams and Malcolm Brogdon go to Portland. Let's break the trade down. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So, it happened, another trade. We didn't know because you can't know 100%, but we knew. I talked about this on the Portland Trailblazers previous shows. I'm not talking about Jrue Holiday if he's going to be on this team because he's not. And he isn't. He's been moved straight away. I wouldn't say that the Blazers situation is clean or clear. It's clearer, but I wouldn't say it's clear at this point. But we are going to talk about the impact of this deal. Today I was going to be doing my usual Monday show of ADP changes, of rank changes, but I might push that to tomorrow just because this is an extra show getting added in. We'll see, but I've got two other shows on the docket for today as well, so probably not going to do that today. We might push the Monday movers to a Tuesday, my time, which will still be Monday. And your time. Let's talk about this trade from both perspectives and see how the values have adjusted here. And then, that's where we're at. So we might as well do it right now. So, Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, they go off to Portland. Jrue Holiday comes across to Milwaukee along with first round picks. Not to Milwaukee, sorry, to Portland with those first round picks, as you can see there on the screen. What do we make of this from a Celtics perspective? Now, what I said yesterday or 2 days ago with Portland regarding Jrue was, I think that wherever he goes, he's probably going to lose. Like, top 75 would be the absolute lowest that he falls to, and he probably drops, and I wouldn't take him inside the top 50, and that holds for me. This whole Celtics situation, now, I don't know what they're going to do with their starting lineup, but we talked about having the three bigs in Horford, Porzingis, and Rob Williams. I said, well, after that, they're pretty thin. Well, now they're thinner. Like, that makes it very thin. So, I think that they're now this almost, and I was pretty sure that Al Horford was going to start. Now I feel pretty sure that he's going to come off the bench because otherwise you're running Luke Cornett, Shea Brissett, and Wenyen Gabriel as a backup center group, or even Neemias Queta as a two-way guy. Whereas in this one now, I suppose you run into similar problems with the guards though, don't you? That's the issue, is that you start Derek White and Jrue Holiday, and then you got to run Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. They were already extraordinarily thin. Talked about this a lot in the offseason. They got like 7 guys, and now they've got 6. And then your 8th man is Pritchard or Hauser or Cornett or Brissett. If they cop an injury anywhere, they're rooted. That is a real problem for Boston. So I don't know what they're going to do, whether Derek White or Al Horford comes off the bench, because whatever you do, it means that you have to rely upon, if you put Horford starting, then White's your backup point guard, and that helps. If you put White starting, then Horford's your backup center. But otherwise, it's a lot of staggering. It's a lot that needs to be done by Joe Mazzulla. And then with the games missed from these guys, it's bad. I'm not saying that they got worse. I'm not, because in the playoffs, you probably need a strong 8-man to 7-man rotation. But this is going stars and scrubs in an auction. If one of these guys falls over, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. So as for Jrue, I wouldn't touch him in the top 50. Back end of round 5 in the 60 to 70 mark, I think is fair. You know that I was already well down on Derek White compared to most other people. Very much well down. In fact, when these rankings battles I'm going to have with an analyst, one of the analysts was going to battle me on my ranking for Derek White. I don't think he will anymore, but he was going to battle me on it. So we'll see where that goes. Now, I'm not going to come here and say that I'm a Nostradamus and think that they were going to get someone in to play ahead of him. I just didn't believe that White was going to have the value that some people thought. And now he goes to a situation where if he does start Derek White, he's the fifth offensive option. Jrue, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, White. And he's also not the primary ball handler or assist guy. So to me, Derek White at this stage, now coming off the bench might help him a little bit, if that's what they decide to do. But I don't think he's playing the 33 minutes a night. He's probably more 30 now. And he just doesn't have the usage ability, or he doesn't have the playmaking upside that he had before. So to me, that pushes White pretty comfortably, I think, outside the top 100. Probably around 110, 120, that sort of an area. I think that drops him down pretty significantly. The impact on guys like Tatum and Brown, I think, is marginal. What it does do, though, this is how I'm viewing it for all of these guys. Tatum and Brown may be a marginal usage hit. But also remember, because they're so shallow, that with games missed, it can buffer that. And they're going to get their shots. It'll hurt Brown more in usage than it will Tatum. But I think this means, almost definitely, that Tatum has to play at the 4. He has to do that more, which means more rebounds. It means probably more blocks and maybe shots closer to the rim. That's a usual thing that happens. And I dinged down Tatum's... I bumped his assists up and I've pushed them back down. I bumped his rebounds down and his blocks down this season, but they go back up because he's going to play more at the 4. So maybe that offsets somewhat. Brown also gets a little bit of a bump in his rebounds, a little bit of a dip in his assists, and a little bit of a dip in his usage. I think it hurts Porzingis as well. It helps Porzingis in terms of rebounds. It helps him in terms of blocks as well without Robert Williams out there. But it does hurt him in terms of overall usage because Drew's going to get his shots, and obviously it hurts Jrue. So this to me puts Porzingis is still in an interesting spot. In terms of his per game production, it looks pretty good still. All right, but there's no way that I'm taking him in the top 25. His ADP on Yahoo's 44 at the moment, Porzingis. I think that he's probably around the 50 mark. Even though without Horford, it could help him. It's just more of a usage battle between him and Holiday now, and versus him and White. Like, that's a different usage situation. So there still, I think, is a pecking order, but I would expect Porzingis and Holiday to be more threes versus one's a clear 3, one's a clear 4 in the pecking order. So that does hurt them. So while if you go onto Basketball Monster, you see my projection for Porzingis, it looks strong, but I'd be really cautious about overvaluing it, and part of it is because of the blocks, and we know how they can put some skews onto some numbers. So just be aware of overvaluing Porzingis based on that. And then he's still got the plantar fascia issue, which we think is okay, but we just hope doesn't flare up really at any point through the season, because that would obviously lead to a lot more in terms of issues. So that's how that looks from a Boston perspective. Jrue loses value. I think Porzingis loses a bit. Tatum and Brown's value changes, and Derek White loses the most. And then Horford probably gains a bit. He's still not draftable to me. And then when you're talking deep leagues, you're looking at Pritchard, you're looking at Brissett, you're looking at probably Hauser gaining some value, and Luke Cornett probably has to come into the every night rotation. But that backup center position, whether it's backup third string, whatever you want to say, is still, I think, in quite a bit of flux at the moment. Today's episode is brought to you by the GameTime app. You want tickets to things. Maybe it is to see the Celtics in their home opener for this upcoming season, but getting tickets, it shouldn't have to be as painful a process as what it's been in the past. You don't want these things where you have to pay an arm and a leg to get these tickets. This is a fast way to buy tickets for sport or comedy or music or whatever it is that you're looking to do. And they've got these killer last-minute deals. They've got all-in prices. You get to see views from your seat as well over on the GameTime app. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know that you're getting a great deal without seeing a price and then going to pay for it and go, oh, here's a processing fee, and here's a transaction fee, and here's an insurance fee, and here's a fee for plastic in the seats, and whatever it is. Like, it's all just there. Price is there. Bang, you see it. You're done. You don't know hidden surprises coming out at the end when you go to pay for it. They've also got these things, zone deals, where you pick the section and then GameTime just picks the seats. And you get an average of 18% savings on those seats. So download the GameTime app, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime, create that account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, so onto the Portland side of things. And this is where we get into a situation where I don't know that they're finished. Because I don't think they can be finished necessarily. Overall, unless you're a Miami Heat fan, I would say that you would think that Portland did much better out of these deals than they did out of Tyler Hero and 2 to 3 first-round picks. Because they've got 3 first-round picks. They've got 2 pick swaps. They've got Brogdon, Williams, Ayton, and Kamara. And Brogdon might still turn into more. The curious thing here is that they believe they're going to keep Rob Williams, and I don't actually know how the hell those two play together, Ayton and Rob Williams. So, what does this do to a Portland perspective? I was pretty big on what Ayton was going to do because part of it was like, he's going to have to do more. He's re-energized. He's in a new spot, and there's no backup. Now there is. And that is a little concerning. So, while I'd be happier, I would have been happy to go into round 3 for Ayton. I'm not anymore. He's more of a round 4-ish sort of guy, still probably top 50, and I still believe that he is going to start. We can't really trust Rob's health. I don't know that they can play together. We'll see. Obviously, one of them is a good rim protector, and the other is DeAndre Ayton. So there is some defensive ability there, and Ayton's shown some ability to be strong and to switch a little bit. Not great at it. It is still a pretty weird fit. What it does do for me also is it doesn't give Williams a big boost. In fact, I think it probably drops him somewhat. When he was going to be paired with Porzingis and Horford, you knew there was going to be time off for some of those guys and some sort of switching ability because both Horford and Porzingis could play next to Williams. Ayton's not really in the same boat there, so I'm very curious as to how that works out, and I don't think that I'd be super comfortable about taking Rob Williams inside the top 100. Now, he still can be an excellent fantasy player. He is one of those guys that gets sucked off by the rankings. We know this because of a high field goal percentage and high blocks with limited contributions in other areas. So be really cautious about coming out and spouting that he's a top 15 player. Like, that's obviously not true. But just be really cautious about how you view his value. I just think in this spot, I don't know how they work together. It's got to be considered a bit of a hit for Ayton and a bit of a hit for Rob Williams here, even though he moves from a spot Rob in Boston where it was Porzingis and Horford there. Now it's just Ayton, but the Ayton-Williams pairing is very iffy compared to Williams could pair with both of those other guys really comfortably and get those 28 minutes without too much of a concern. Here, it is a little bit harder. Bringing in Brogdon is interesting. Now, I'm sort of 50-50 about whether he's going to stay. It doesn't impact anything for me. For Scoot, for Simons, Shaedon Sharp's a little iffy, but like I said on the Portland show the other day, while we do have Scoot and Simons here, there is no other point guard on this roster. None. Not a single person who, if someone got hurt, was going to be able to play point guard. Now, they did just sign Skylar Mays to a two-way. Skylar Mays, who played like the 3 or 4 games last season, became a fantasy legend in the playoffs. They didn't have another point guard. Brogdon, as a 26-minute a night reserve guard, easily can fit in on this team. You're going to have Scoot, Simons, Sharp, Thibault, Brogdon to play 96 minutes across the 1, 2, and the 3. Because as we detailed on that Blazers preview show, their depth at the 3 stinks. It's Kamara, it's Knox, Chris Murray. There's no one there. It's absolute nothing. So you got 96 minutes per game for those 5 players. Does that mean that they're all going to be awesome? No, it doesn't. And it leads to some concern because Scoot's going to play 30 plus. Simon's going to play probably 35. Not 96 minutes, sorry. 144 minutes. So 33. Let's do 33, 35 for Scoot and for Simons. That's 68. You got, let's say, 30 for Sharp. That's 98. And then you've got 46 minutes for Brogdon and Thibault. So 24 minutes apiece, I guess. It sort of works. Yeah, I think it sort of works, right? And there's going to be nights where Scoot plays 30 or he plays 34 or Sharp plays 28. So what I think this does is Scoot and Simons are fairly solid. It probably knocks a little bit of the top off Sharp, and I was a little worried about where Sharp was going to go. Love him, later round pick, no problem with Shaedon Sharp in those later rounds. But his ability to do anything apart from score was predicated last season on everybody being out. And now not only is everybody not out, but there's Ayton, there's Grant, there's Simons, there's Scoot, and there's Brogdon. So I don't think that Sharp is an absolute lock to start. So to me, he is very firmly in late round flyer territory, Shaedon Sharp. Brogdon is probably not someone that I would consider drafting in 12-team leagues. I just think with this team, the upside is very low because they're just not going to prioritize him over these other guys. He's going to play. He's going to be useful for them from a on-court perspective. But he also just might not stay. So I don't know where he's going to go. But I'm definitely not interested in drafting Malcolm Brogdon for fantasy at this point. The only guy who really I think takes a hit here are the two big men. It's Ayton and Williams, who Ayton maybe he could have been top 30. And Williams might have been top 80 in Boston, whereas now I think they move back 10 to 15 spots each. Williams is almost, I think, undraftable in a points league. He just doesn't have that upside in that sort of a format. Ayton loses value in both, probably 10 spots in points and categories, and Williams drops a little bit there as well. And it probably does hurt a little bit to Matisse Thybulle. So even if they were going to start him, just having another capable guard on the team, which they currently do with Brogdon, hurts in terms of that because there's those 5 guys who will play those 144 minutes, whereas previously there was really 4 useful players to play those 144 minutes, not including your Chris Murrays and things like that. So those sort of bench forwards also cop a little bit of a hit. So Murray and Jabari Walker and Kevin Knox, if he plays at all, they're going to be pushed more towards being Jeremy Grant's backup versus being useful backups at the 3. If they do play Williams and Ayton together, what that means is Grant might play a little bit more at the 3, but as I said, Grant's backup is pretty iffy in terms of it being Murray or Kamara or Walker or someone like that. So maybe they do try Williams and Ayton together for a few minutes a game. I think undoubtedly, again, unless you're a Miami fan, this is a much better package than what they would have got because Tyler Hero wasn't netting anything like this that Jrue Holiday did. And I don't think that they're completely done. Where Brogdon ends up next, I think that it's very hard for me to see Brogdon being a 12-team league guy really anywhere. And I don't think I'd be that interested in drafting him at this point. 14 teams, sure. But in 12-team leagues, I don't think he's draftable, even if he's moved. But we'd have to see where he ends up in that situation. So it is a interesting trade that's gone down here. And I'll just give my overall thoughts on it. Like I said, Jrue Holiday gone to Boston. It makes Boston better on the surface, but it brings up significant questions about their depth. It hurts the value of Derek White. It probably hurts a little bit of Porzingis. It changes the value of Tatum and Brown, and it probably helps Horford. And then there's just a bunch of blokes on the bench who absolutely need to step up, or else they're in real trouble. Pritchard needs to play a real role. O'Shea Brissett or Luke Cornett or Wenyen Gabriel or second-round pick Jordan Walsh need to play a real role. Because as soon as someone sits, they have 5 legit players. Sam Hauser needs to step up. That is a real problem. And as for Portland, I don't think they're done. Taking a bet on Rob Williams is good. Whether he works with Ayton, I have significant doubts. But it's a good return. You get picks, you get prospects, you get more flippability. I like it in the end. Let me know what you think about this trade. Do you think Brogdon stays in Portland? I'm convinced Robert Williams does, but we'll see. Maybe they get another good offer. It is conceivable that Rob Williams could net a first and maybe a shitty first on his own, maybe, with the upside and prospect that he brings. Maybe not. Maybe it's just one first. But you could get another first out of him and maybe a protected first for Brogdon too. That's possible. That's possible. I don't know if they do it, but it is possible. Anyway, follow this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app and on YouTube. Thumb it up and leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.